Hey everyone, welcome to CalicoCon. I'm so happy to be here. My name is Cameron Skidmore. I am a global partner solution architect at Red Hat, and I focus mainly with infrastructure and security ISV partners, which is why I'm so happy to be here at CalicoCon today, because Tigera is one of those partners, and I'm so happy to be working with them. My counterpart is Joseph. Joseph, you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Cam. My name is Yostos. I'm a technical marketing engineer at Tigera, and I help customers to learn more about Calico and provide them with best practices to secure their cloud-native environments.
Awesome. Let's rock and roll with some open source tech and get into it. Like I was saying, one of the reasons I'm really excited to be here today with Joseph is to talk about open source technology. I've been at Red Hat for about 3 years now, so I'm definitely dyed in the wool when it comes to open source tech. And Joseph can talk tech with the best of them. So without any further ado, let's get into it. So the agenda for today is really open source focused. We're going to start with Red Hat's open source roots, and then we're going to show how Tigera has a very similar kind of approach and why those roots aren't just neat from an open source evangelization perspective, but how they make for amazing solutions for actual business problems, and how open source at its core with these offerings makes it even for a better way to combine them and add value. And it kind of all flows really seamlessly as well. Then Joseph's going to take us through some use cases and also talk about the Calico and Tigera solution as well, and how all that can run together on the OKD or OpenShift Red Hat platform. About 30 years ago, Red Hat first started taking open source technology and those open source projects and packaging them up and hardening them and supporting them for the enterprise. That was 30 years ago. We were kind of the first trailblazers in that movement. But since then, we are no longer unique. There are tons of open source companies out there creating all sorts of amazing technology. Tigera is one of them, which again is why I'm so happy to be here presenting with Joseph today. Now, we don't have one product anymore. We have dozens, all from open source roots. Every single bit of our code is open. And for the purposes of this particular presentation and how it applies to the alliance with Tigera, I'm going to focus mainly on the OKD open source project, which is a Kubernetes-based platform with also a little bit of CoreOS, which is going to be the host operating system that OKD runs on. And you'll see why that's so important here in a bit. I really like this slide because it kind of shows just the variety of different technology in open source and why it's so important to realize that open source is kind of the way innovation happens for software these days. And of course, how Calico and Tigera also are doing the exact same thing in really amazing ways. So when it comes to OKD and CoreOS, when we talk about Red Hat's Kubernetes platform, a lot of times people think it's an or situation. They think that it may be you have to pick Kubernetes or you go with the Red Hat approach. But really, the OKD platform is built on top of Kubernetes. It's not or Kubernetes, it's and Kubernetes. And then beneath that, same with CoreOS. The real beauty of this is that you have all of the functionality, all of the API functionality of Kubernetes with that open source project, but also you have a bunch of other things around it to make it ready for the enterprise, to make it more secure for the enterprise. Beneath it, at the host level, you'll have CoreOS, which is an immutable operating system, making it more secure. But also from a scalability perspective, you can control how those operating system and hosts scale out to supply you with more Kubernetes clusters as you go forward. So it's both safer and easier to use in that way. On top of Kubernetes, what OKD actually is a collection of different operators that provide a slew of different functionalities and services on top of what Kubernetes already offers. You're not taking anything away from what Kubernetes is. You're just adding to the usability of it, the security of it, and the functionalities that it can perform. To kind of illustrate this, I just want to take us through a quick demonstration of where Kubernetes is in the stack and where OKD is in the stack. So, of course, you have your core compute network storage aspects of your Kubernetes cluster, and you have your worker nodes and your control nodes. And as you go along, you're going to see that anything in blue here is going to be aspects of Kubernetes, whereas anything in green is going to be what OKD adds to the offering. So of course, with Kubernetes, you have the etcd to control what the state of the environment is and to set all your configurations. You have the scheduler, the cluster management, all the Kubernetes API functionality that you would normally have. At any point when you're using OKD, you can use the kubectl command and tap the Kubernetes API to do what you would normally do. It's still right there. But sometimes it makes sense to have other things on top of what just Kubernetes has as an open source offering. This can be anything from the lifecycle management, like I mentioned before, where all the additions to Kubernetes and even Kubernetes itself is run through operators rather than just one-off configurations. You would have the web console so that you could have that aspect of interacting with it. Another aspect of the web console is that you can create two different views. You can create a view for the developer, and you can create a view for the administrators as well. And of course, if you're going to have a really robust enterprise-ready environment, you're going to need all sorts of monitoring and logging and the ability to tune different nodes and clusters to perform in optimal ways. Again, though, Kubelets still there. Kubernetes DNS is still there. There's a gradient here where we're very seamlessly combining open source technology together. And that's going to be the theme all the way through this presentation. You have open source technology kind of flawlessly plugging in one after the other. Of course, you can run these across the Kubernetes or the OKD cluster, just like Kubernetes. Everything in Kubernetes is a container. Everything in OKD is a container as well. So the same cloud native approach is going throughout the entire infrastructure. You have a container registry that you wouldn't otherwise have that is being able to be controlled by RBAC systems. In fact, most of this is going to be controlled through RBAC systems for security. And so that you can implement your security policies in the way that you would need to. And of course, all the alert managing, log aggregation, data visualization that's going to make anything ready for the enterprise, that's built in as well. That doesn't normally come with Kubernetes. And even if you have things like Kibana or Elasticsearch that you include into a Kubernetes cluster, a vanilla one, there's still the issue of overhead. Everything you add on top of Kubernetes, even Kubernetes itself, honestly, you're going to have to worry about updating it, patching it, all those different things. That's all handled here. And of course, networking, which we're about to get closer and closer to as we talk in this presentation, and how important that is to make sure all these different microservices are connected the way they need to and connected safely, and that the customers are getting delivered the kind of applications and functionalities that they're expecting to in a timely manner. When we talk about it as a Kubernetes platform, I think we do OKD a bit of a disservice. It's half Kubernetes container orchestration platform and it's half development platform. There's a whole lot of functionalities that are built in just to make this tailored to the types of people that are using it, whether you're a network administrator, a DevSecOps stakeholder, or an application developer trying to make your apps more cloud native and speed up that pipeline. There's all sorts of different functionalities and views in OKD to make that happen. And of course, it doesn't stop just with that. Red Hat's partner ecosystem and the power of the Red Hat partner ecosystem is such that we're able to have the flexibility to create whatever functionality that is really required from a networking perspective with our friends over at Tigera and Calico. So this gets even more robust and more refined through that. And of course, you have both Red Hat and Tigera backing up our supported solutions together. So if you need us for that, or you want somebody to have your back from a patching and maintenance perspective, that's what we're here for. Okay, so I'm going to toss it over to Joseph.
Okay, thank you, Karen. So in the next 10 minutes, I will walk you through some of the top use cases for Calico and OpenShift. But before that, I want to take some time to talk about the seamless experience of cloud native when you use Calico on top of Red Hat or OpenShift. Starting from the simplicity of installation process where you can install Calico using OpenShift Ansible or using Calico certified operator for OpenShift, and also the integration with OpenShift Operator Lifecycle Manager. Calico designed also to be fully integrated with OpenShift authentication model that include the authentication server to obtain tokens and RBACs to provide user segmentation, in addition to the audit log and all the enriched log that we get from OpenShift. And the last thing is that you don't need to install any additional tool or utility to apply Calico configuration. You still can use the OC command line to do everything you want to do with Calico. That being said, there are many use cases for Calico, but based on our OpenShift customer database, these are the top ones. For the open source project Calico, one of the top use cases is the advanced networking feature, something like BGP pairing and IBAM. Then the advanced security policy and network segmentation, host protection for OpenShift control plane, and data in transit encryption with WireGuard. When it comes to Calico Cloud and Calico Enterprise, we have loads of features there, something like the hierarchical policies and with tiers, service endpoint federation, where you get the ability to federate service and endpoint in cluster in different regions or in different environments. Something like DNS policies, observability, and the dual double flag architecture. I can dig into each of these, but given the time scale, I will focus on the top 4 use cases for the open source project Calico. Let's start with the advanced networking features. The Calico network design is very simple. We allow to configure layer 3 networking without any encapsulation. For other use cases, when you can't enable layer 3 without encapsulation, you may need to have an overlay network. And in this case, we support IP-IP overlay or VXLAN. Calico also has been tested on scale to the limit of Kubernetes, and because of the network design, which relies on BGP to configure the routes between the workloads, it allowed us to scale quite fast. Calico has been built as well to be very pluggable, which means it can run on different data planes based on what you would like to use. So at the moment, we support eBPF, Windows data plane. This is in addition to the standard Linux IB tables and IB sets. And recently, we have added a VPP to our portfolio. It's dual stack solution with advanced BGP utilities like dual double flag peering that provides a redundant and active network path for the business critical cluster application that you have. This is in addition to tons of other enterprise features that we add on top of our open source project Calico, like packet capture, egress gateways, and service and endpoint federation. So moving to advanced security policy, Calico security policies provide a level of isolation and a microsegmentation between workloads. And it adds a lot of features over the standard network policies. Some of these features are namespacing and global scopes, deny and log actions, policy ordering, feature matches based on service accounts and labels. So there are many of these features. Just for sake of the time, let's focus on the importance of something like namespacing and global scopes with the deny features. For this use case, we have all heard of the shift left security. This is the idea of allowing your security team to take the responsibility for a high-level security approach and allowing your project team to manage their own security. That's alongside the project they are building, and that gives us a lot of benefits for the organization. Well, so using a combination security of Calico global security policies and namespace network security policies, you can see something like in this diagram, a very nice use case that allows security team to manage the global network policy at a very high level, and then allow your project teams to manage policies individually within their own project namespace. So in this example, the security team has mandate, for example, that the metrics collection is allowed and the DNS is allowed, but they have blocked some other things. So this presents a situation where your project team can be agile. They can implement their own security alongside their own project from day one, and yet they have some guardrails in place to prevent them from making any foolish mistakes. The next use case is encryption. And Calico, with help of WireGuard, can secure node-to-node communication. A common solution in the market nowadays is to encrypt traffic on application layer using MTLS. Traffic also can be encrypted at lower infrastructure layer using IPsec. However, these approaches introduces an additional layer of complexity and performance implications. Encrypting traffic with MTLS requires SSL certificates, and that creates a definitely overhead for the IT organization. So Calico provides a solution that avoids this complexity by utilizing WireGuard to implement state-of-the-art cryptography and aims to be faster and simpler than any alternative encryption technique, something like IPsec. WireGuard runs as a module inside the Linux kernel, and it provides a better performance and lower CPU utilization. In a recent independent performance benchmark test, Calico with WireGuard enabled was a kind of 6 times faster than any other encryption mechanism. The last use case is host endpoint protection. Many customers who adopted cloud native architecture are going to get rid of their firewalls or the traditional firewall in their environment. And that's why they started to rely on Calico to secure the node itself. In addition to securing the containerized workload, Calico helps you to secure the host endpoint, whether it's a virtual machine or physical server. And simply in a Kubernetes cluster, each container has an Ethernet network interface, which is in reality just one end of a virtual Ethernet pair, which carries packets from the container to the host for forwarding. Project Calico treats the host endpoint of the pair as a workload endpoint. That means you can add labels to the host endpoint and create a security policy that allows ordinary traffic to and from this label. There are many use cases for Calico on top of OpenShift that allows the power and shows the power of these two solutions. The last thing I want to say here is that Tigera and Red Hat is a kind of proven full stack solution, and it's available in the market in production for some of the big customers, several Fortune 500 companies. The last thing, there's a lot of social that you can get in touch with us there if you have any question. Let you know that over 8,000 Slack channel members in our community, over 250 contributors, and over 2 million nodes powered by Calico every day. So it's very active community where you can join to learn from and share your learning with the community members. With that, thank you so much for attending and listening to our session. I hope you enjoyed the rest of the session. Thank you.
Cloud-native applications can't be secured with the traditional security tools. You need a more active and granular level of security. Calico Cloud is an active cloud-native application protection platform that detects, prevents, and mitigates breaches in cloud-native applications. Let's look at how to secure your cloud-native environment at build time with Calico's container security. At build time, we want to make sure that images that the development team provides are clean and without major vulnerabilities or misconfigurations. All image registries are auto-populated and continuously scanned by Calico's scanning engine. I can also manually add new registries. It's very easy for me to see the results of the last scan from the scan results page. Pass-fail is color-coded with specific scores. Details about each vulnerability that impacts each image are available on the right side. I can control which images can be displayed to my environment using admission control policies. I am only allowing images with pass or worn scan results. I've also enforced an upper limit for the age of a scan result. Now, if any application developer attempts to deploy an image that doesn't pass the security criteria, it will automatically be blocked. Once you have the admission policies in place, you may come across a situation where the application developer is telling you that a particular vulnerability does not impact their code and the way in which they are using the affected library. In this case, you need to create an exception. Calico Cloud offers a number of options to scope the exception to a specific image version, any version of this image, or any image. In addition to scanning and assessment of images, I must ensure the Kubernetes environment is also secure and does not have any misconfigurations. Calico helps you continuously assess your Kubernetes configuration using compliance reports that assess your configuration against CIS benchmarks. I scheduled my CIS benchmark report to run every 24 hours. The number of nodes passing or failing the CIS benchmark tests is color-coded. And here are the top failed tests. I can also download the full report to get more insight on each test and how to mitigate its risk. At this stage, I have scanned all my images, allowed the deployment of only those that pass the security requirements, and I have also assessed my deployment environment against CIS benchmarks. Try it yourself by signing up at www.calicocloud.io. Cloud-native applications can't be secured with the traditional security tools. You need a more active and granular level of security. Calico Cloud is an active cloud-native application protection platform that detects, prevents, and mitigates breaches in cloud-native applications. Let's look at how to secure your cloud-native environment at build time with Calico's container security. At build time, we want to make sure that images that the development team provides are clean and without major vulnerabilities or misconfigurations. All image registries are auto-populated and continuously scanned by Calico's scanning engine. I can also manually add new registries. It's very easy for me to see the results of the last scan from the scan results page. Pass-fail is color-coded with specific scores. Details about each vulnerability that impacts each image are available on the right side. I can control which images can be displayed to my environment using admission control policies. I am only allowing images with pass or worn scan results. I've also enforced an upper limit for the age of a scan result. Now, if any application developer attempts to deploy an image that doesn't pass the security criteria, it will automatically be blocked. Once you have the admission policies in place, you may come across a situation where the application developer is telling you that a particular vulnerability does not impact their code and the way in which they are using the affected library. In this case, you need to create an exception. Calico Cloud offers a number of options to scope the exception to a specific image version, any version of this image, or any image. In addition to scanning and assessment of images, I must ensure the Kubernetes environment is also secure and does not have any misconfigurations. Calico helps you continuously assess your Kubernetes configuration using compliance reports that assess your configuration against CIS benchmarks. I scheduled my CIS benchmark report to run every 24 hours. The number of nodes passing or failing the CIS benchmark tests is color-coded.